When the Endgame Gear OP18K first came out, I didn't think much of it. It's not the XM2 wireless, which I constantly joked about, and I was like, a cable in this era of wireless dominance, oh how adorable. Yet I got asked if I was planning to review it, and my answer was always no. I didn't think it was interesting enough to review. We'd all have a little giggle at it being wired, and that would be it. I've never been so wrong. So let's explore what could be one of the most innovative mice available today. First off, this is using the 3395 sensor, which is common for most gaming mice these days. What I'd normally be saying at this point as well is that it's using a Nordic MCU, but it's not. It's using a Nuvoton M483 MCU. This means something. I don't know what. What I do know is that smarter and hairier people than me have already done extensive testing on the OP18K and have determined that it has some of the best performance you can get in a gaming mouse. This next part is where I start getting a bit excited, so bear with me. The stock switches this mouse comes with are KALE GX. From what I understand, they have been made in collaboration with Endgame Gear. They've basically worked together to build this switch from scratch. The KALE GXs are mechanical switches, but Endgame Gear is using, cool buzzword time, algorithms. So there's no double clicking. Not only that, they have another feature. With traditional switches, when the contact strip hits the bottom plate, that triggers the signal. In the software, which I'm very excited to talk about as well by the way, you can select speed mode. So when the contact strip is released from this resting point at the top, that's when the switch is actually triggered. Endgame Gear actually said that this feature is usable with some other switches from their switch packs. Yep, switch packs. Whoops, we'll get to that in a moment. Because there is more. From what I understand, the switch and sensor data are sent separately, with the switch data always being sent at an 8000 Hz polling rate, no matter what the sensor polling rate is set to. And this feature works with any switch you choose. So, the switch packs. If you don't like the GX switches, you can buy a different set. The GX speed and safe modes apparently work with the Zippy switches and the HNCHK, or is that Hunchuk ones as well. You can buy individual packs which come with a set of 2 already soldered into the PCB and features a range of the more popular switches, or you can buy a universal pack which I believe is a hot swappable PCB and comes with all the additional switches from the individual ones. But the default KALE GX switches are actually okay. They are one of the lighter mechanical switches, yet still have a nice tactile click to them. I think you can keep with the stock ones and be satisfied. They're at least better than most of the garbage optical switches that are out there anyway, that most mice are moving to. Endgame Gear has also gone a bit further on making this consumer friendly and easy. Normally, to swap switches you have to take the mouse apart, which means removing the mouse feet, which can be a bit of a pain as removing them cleanly with no bumps requires a bit of practice. But on the OP18K the screws are exposed, so you don't have to worry about ruining the feet, and the spare bigger mouse feet they provide have the holes cut out where the screws sit as well. I think the only difficult part for inexperienced people is maybe unplugging the cables. You can just pull them lightly and with a slight wiggle they'll eventually come out. There's labels on the PCB that tell you which cable goes where. As the switches have a separate PCB and are screwed to the top shell, you can test the switch straight away to make sure everything feels as it should before putting it back together. This feature is honestly incredible, especially during the optical switch era where different manufacturers are using unique pin setups so they're not as easily swappable anymore. Endgame Gear recognizes that everyone has different preferences when it comes to switches. They could have not gone to these lengths, but they have. There's still my favorite part to go through, but first let's take a look at the shape, as this is the more divisive part. The shape of this mouse is mainly designed for a claw grip. I think that's the only usable grip for this mouse personally, at least for my hand size, which is this. Because of how narrow it is, there's little support for your ring and pinky finger. They'll just hang off to the side. You really need them to be in that claw position to get any support. The side walls reach to the same level as the button height, so you do have placement for a finger there as well. The curvature going from the hump at the rear to the middle section is significant. It goes from around 60.5mm to just 54mm. I think this is one of the biggest width differences I've seen here. Once it reaches that 54mm width, it pretty much keeps that all the way to the front of the mouse. This mouse is pretty small small, with it being around 118mm long and also just 37mm tall. It also only weighs about 51 grams, so it is rather light. I've mentioned the spare mouse feet you get, which are bigger and have the cutouts for access to the screws, but you also get some grip tape included in the box as well. Before we get to my verdict, my favourite feature is the software, because this is so basic, it's amazing. No annoying convoluted tab sections where things are just hidden away or in Chinese. It has all the essentials you need, clearly laid out, no extra fluff, and it uses like 1.7 megabytes of memory. At the start I said I was wrong about this mouse, and I also apologise. To Endgame Gear, I'm sorry for constantly making jokes about the XM2 wireless, and I won't anymore. And I apologise for not taking the OP18K seriously when I really should have. Maybe I was busy at the time. But considering all the great features that this mouse has, which I would have found out if I had just spent a few minutes on doing my research, I would have given this mouse the respect that it deserves. Because honestly, this mouse is absolutely incredible. For around $84, you're getting one of, if not the best performing mouse on the market, which is consumer friendly with the addition of swapping switches and provides a basic and lightweight software solution. It has amazing build quality around the mouse as well, despite the fact that it's easy to take apart and swap the switches. Sometimes that can create a compromise on the structural feel of the mouse, but it doesn't. The shape is something I'm not comfortable with, but that's not a downside, and it's just not made for my grip type. When I've been able to adjust to the shape, it's been amazing to play with. I've been running it at around 4000 Hz, mainly because some of the games I play are unoptimized pieces of trash, and I've experienced no issues. It's been perfect performance wise. Yes, there's a cable, which is technically a downside, but the benefits is that you can run 8000 Hz polling without the worry of the battery draining quickly. There's no wireless interference, and then it's also cheaper as a result. I do recommend you buy a bungee when using this mouse, especially if you use a cloth pad, as it will drag. I've been using it on my strike pad, and because there's hardly any friction, the cable moving around hasn't actually been a problem. If you don't want to buy a bungee, you can make one. If I were to be nitpicky though, another criticism is the scroll wheel and side buttons are a bit rigid, but overall this is a great mouse. I honestly can't wait for the XM2 wireless, which is going to be released any day. If future releases of Endgame Gear mice have these features and they release them in a timely fashion, then I think they're going to be the manufacturer to beat. They've clearly put a lot of effort into this mouse, and it really shows, and it results in one of the best mice you can buy. If you're wanting to check out one of the best wireless mice, there is a video on screen now.